Good morning, friends. Today we are starting a new chapter, atoms and molecules. So we have seen the previous two lectures in chemistry. Is matter around us pure? First we saw the matter in our surroundings, and then we raised the question, is the matter around us pure? So we saw elements, compounds and mixtures. Elements and compounds are considered pure because they are made up of only one type of substances, while mixtures are heterogeneous in nature and they are not pure. Now we go to the next part, deeper inside. First we saw matter and we divided the matter into solid, liquid and gas. That was on the physical properties. In the chemical properties we saw the element, compounds and mixtures. Now we are going to the components of this element, compounds and mixtures, which are atoms and molecules. So in this chapter we are going to understand atoms and molecules in detail. So first we go to the introduction part, the history. Ancient Indian and Greek philosophers always wondered, yes. There are some people with scientific frame of mind, they always keep on wondering. So they wondered about the unknown and unseen form of matter. Now all you can see around us, the trees, the walls, the buildings, the vehicles and all, is the seen form of matter, but what are they made up of? How small are the particles they are made up of? That is the unseen form of matter. So the idea of divisibility was considered in India around 500 BC when an Indian philosopher Maharishi Kannad, he said if we go on dividing the matter, in Gujarati we call it Padarth, if you keep on dividing matter, we will get smaller and smaller particles. Means for example, if you look at a wall, you will see the wall is made up of bricks. If you look at the bricks are made up of sand, which are burnt in a furnace or baked in a furnace. If you look at that sand, it is also made up of particles. And those particles are made up of smaller particles. Ultimately, a time will come when we will reach across the smallest particles, beyond which further division will not be possible. And Maharishi Kannad called these particles Paramanu. Another Indian philosopher, Pakuda Katyayama, elaborated this doctrine and said these particles exist in a combined form. Now we'll see what he means by this. He says the smaller particles do not stay independent, but they combine, giving us the various forms of matter. Then, in the same era, some Greek philosophers, Democritus and Leucippus, they suggested if we go on dividing matter, a stage will come when the particles cannot be divided further. This is the same idea which Maharishi Kannad gave. Democritus called these invisible particles atoms. What Maharishi called Parmanu, Democritus called them atoms, means indivisible. So all this was based on philosophical consideration. Now what is philosophical consideration? Philosophy means the study or something which is given from observation. And there were no experiments done. No scientific method, just philosophy to validate this idea. There was inference from what was easily observable to us. All this experimentation started after the 18th century. People got interested in knowing into things but not believing without seeing. They wanted to experiment on their own and try to find out different ways in which to study this matter. So, some laws came up during this time. When they studied matter, some laws came up. One law is law of conservation of mass. So what is this law of conservation of mass? The law is simply that mass can neither be created nor destroyed. You can only change mass. So during a chemical reaction, whenever there is a chemical reaction, total mass of the reactants. What are the reactants? The substances taking part in the chemical reaction are called the reactants, taking part. So the total mass, so here we have got in this example A, is one reactant reacting with B. So the total mass of A and B will be equal to the total mass of the product. What is the product from here? AB. So the mass of A plus the mass of B should give us the mass of AB. So H2, the atomic mass of H is 1, so H2 is 2. And the 2 atoms of H2, so 2 2s are 4. The atomic mass of oxygen is 16, so 2 16s are 32. So if you add 4 gram of hydrogen to 32 gram of oxygen, we get 36 gram of water. So the atomic mass remains same. Now here is a diagram which will show you. There is a cork, a sealed flask. You can see a sealed conical flask. It is sealed because no matter or enter can enter or leave from this flask. There is a small ignition tube in which there is a solution of X and a solution of Y. Now what is done? The flask is measured when it is empty. The liquid solution Y is measured. The mass of this is measured. The mass of X is measured. Yes? So before these two are reacted, X and Y, before X and Y are reacted, the total mass of this apparatus is found out. And then this X is allowed to dip with this thread, allowed to dip in the Y, and the chemical reaction will take place and the new product will be formed. But after the chemical reaction, again the mass is taken and it is seen that the total mass of the system before the reaction and after the reaction remains the same. So Ma plus Mb is Mab. That is the law of conservation of mass. We will take an example. In the reaction of 5.3 gram of sodium carbonate reacts with 6 gram of ethanoic acid. So we have got 5.3 gram of sodium carbonate and 6 gram of ethanoic acid. The products form are 2.2 gram of CO2, 0.9 gram of H2O and 8.2 gram of sodium ethanoate. So do they observe or do they agree with the law of conservation of mass? So this is the reaction given to us. So put the value. The mass of sodium carbonate is 5.3 gram and mass of ethanoic acid is 6 gram. So it gives us 11.3 grams of the reactant. The total mass of the reactants is 11.3. Now what are the products from sodium ethanoate, CO2 and H2O? Sodium ethanoate is 8.2 grams, CO2 is 2.2 grams and this is 0.9 gram H2O. This is also 11.3. So since the sum of the mass of the reactants and sum of the mass of the products is the same, we have LHS equal to RHS, which tells us that law of conservation of mass is in agreement with the given values of the equation. So here you can see in this reaction no matter is added or removed. Matter, the mass is only changing from one form to another. Yes, it is changing form from one form to another. So now let us see the second law, law of constant proportion. That was law of conservation of mass. Now we have the law of constant proportion. What is this law? It says a pure, see the word here, pure means made up of only one type of substance. A pure chemical compound always contains the same elements combined together. So whenever you take a pure sample of a chemical compound, this chemical compound will always be made of the same elements combined in the same proportion by mass. So not only is the total mass of the reaction conserved, but even the proportion by mass, no matter where you take the sample from, okay, or where you produce the sample, whichever way you produce the sample, whatever the procedure may be, if the product is the same, if the chemical compound you select anywhere around the world or in the universe, the proportion by mass will remain the same. In other words, in a chemical substance, the elements are always present in definite proportion. The word is definite. Remember, the key word is definite. The proportion is always definite proportion by mass. Now let us see an example. 18 gram of H2O. In 18 gram of H2O, now what is this compound H2O made up of? Water made up of two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. So wherever you collect this water, 18 grams, you will find there is 16 gram of oxygen and 2 gram of hydrogen. If you do the electrolysis and separate them, this is what you get. So ratio of mass of hydrogen to mass of oxygen is 2 upon 16 or 1 upon 8. Yes? 1 upon 8. So the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is 1 upon 8. If you take 36 gram of H2O, it will have 32 gram of oxygen, 4 gram of hydrogen. Again you compare hydrogen to oxygen, 4 is to 32 is again 1 upon 8. So this 1 upon 8 is a constant ratio. So now you may take how much ever water you want. Okay, how much ever water. If you will see that the water has got 10 gram hydrogen, you can very surely say that oxygen will be in the ratio 8 times. So 80 gram will be the oxygen. So whichever sample you take now, whichever sample it may be, when you take water, the proportion of hydrogen to oxygen will always remain 1 is to 8. So whatever hydrogen you take in the sample of water, in the chemical formula of water, the oxygen will always remain 8 times the mass of hydrogen. So whatever the mass of hydrogen, oxygen will be 8 times the mass. So now we got another example. Hydrogen and oxygen combine in the ratio 1 is to 8 and form water we just saw. Now, what mass of oxygen gas would require to completely react with 3 gram of hydrogen? So I told you it is very simple. Hydrogen and oxygen ratio is 1 is to 8. If hydrogen is 3, then this will be 3 8s are, so the answer is 24. But how to write it? This is how it is written. We saw ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is 1 is to 8, but hydrogen is given 3 grams, so we put the value of hydrogen 3, and then you cross multiply, so mass of oxygen will be 24 gram. Okay, so now we have got 3 gram hydrogen, 4 gram, 24 gram oxygen, so the total mass of water will be 27 gram. 27 gram of H2O will have 3 gram of hydrogen and 24 gram of oxygen. Yes, so that is how we have satisfied both the law of constant proportion and the law of constant mass also. So when the scientists, now one interesting fact, all these elements and compounds were studied by chemists who were originally called alchemists. Alchemists are sort of people who are involved in magic. Now why they were called alchemists is because history says they were trying to find a philosopher's stone. Philosopher's stone is something which is magical, which can convert any metal into gold. So scientists were trying to make this philosopher's stone. So all the things which they added in the stone was noted down. So because of alchemy, many rich people made laboratories in their underground or in their houses and were constantly working, separating matter to get the elements and the compounds. But after they found out a lot of things, what they did was tried experimenting with them. So two laws came to the front. Which two laws? Law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion. So after this knowledge, they went further. And Dalton, from all his observation, gave his atomic theory. So let us see. So he studied this law of the conservation of mass was followed, law of constant proportion. From that, Dalton gave his atomic theory. What is his theory? He speculated that all matter is made up of very tiny particles called atoms. So all the matter is made up of tiny particles called atoms. Atoms are indivisible. They cannot broken down further. Means they cannot be created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction. This is true up to the chemical reaction. That atoms are indivisible. When atoms act in a chemical reaction, they are not broken down further in a chemical reaction is true. But now we know an atom is made up of electron, proton and neutron. So the atom can be divided further, but it was not known in the name of Dalton. So Dalton, and he is right, in a chemical reaction, the atom remains a whole unit, it cannot be broken down. The atoms are invisible particles which can't be created or destroyed. So this gives us the law of conservation of mass. Now atoms of an element have identical mass and identical chemical properties. For example, if you take a piece of pure copper, when copper is made up of copper atoms, all the copper atoms will have the same mass and the same chemical properties. If you take iron or aluminum or zinc, iron is made up of iron particles, zinc is made up of zinc particles, aluminum is made up of aluminum particles. All the particles of that element will have the same mass and the same chemical properties. But atoms of different elements will have different mass and different chemical properties. Means copper and oxygen and zinc and aluminum. All the copper is identical, all the iron atoms are identical, all the zinc atoms are identical, or aluminum atoms are identical, but iron and copper are different, copper and zinc, they are all different. Different elements will have different mass. Now the atoms which combine will always combine in small whole numbers to form compound. That is law of constant proportion. So like we say in water, it always remains H2O. So if we have 10 atoms of oxygen, then hydrogen should be 20 hydrogen. So it becomes 10 H2O. This will always remain H2O in the same proportion, but 10 hydrogen, 20 hydrogen and 10 oxygen will make 10 molecules of water. Last we have the relative number and kinds of atoms are constant in a given compound. Yes? Whichever compound we talk about H2O, we can talk about another compound CO2. Here, the relative number of kinds of atoms, see carbon and oxygen will remain the same and always in the same proportion. So this is Dalton's atomic theory which he gave from the observation and the studies done during his time. So now we can go and try to understand what is an atom. So according to the modern atomic theory, the perfect definition for now is an atom is the smallest particle of an element. Now, do you remember what an element is? An element is a substance which is made up of only one kind of atoms. So, this atom is the smallest particle of an element. It is the smallest particle of the element which take parts in a chemical reaction. What it means to say, suppose you got this element in liquid form in a test tube, or you got in a solid form as some powder, or you have got a lump, whatever. When you will dissolve it in a liquid, this will break up. Well, how much part will break up? It will break up till it becomes the size of this atom. So atom is the smallest particle which take parts in a chemical reaction, and during the chemical reaction the atom will maintain its identity throughout the chemical or physical change. Means even if you burn it, yes, heat it, it will maintain its identity. Means suppose we have got coal, say carbon, and we have got air, say O2, the oxygen in the air. When carbon will burn, it will get oxidized to give us a gas called carbon dioxide, CO2. But this smoke, this gas coming out, will still have the carbon in the same form which was there in the coal. The oxygen in this gas will be in the same form it was in the air. But the properties of the coal and the oxygen will change because now it has made a new compound, CO2. So we learned that in a compound, the properties will change. Atoms are very small and hence cannot be seen even through a powerful microscope. Powerful microscope means now there are more powerful microscope. We have the ATM, the atomic tunneling microscope, and the scanning tunneling microscope. So these two are now very powerful microscope which can go to atomic size. But the normal powerful microscope cannot help us see the atom. Atomic radius of smallest atom, which is the smallest atom we know, is the hydrogen atom, whose radius is 0.3 into 10 raised to minus 10 or 0.037 nanometer. 1 nanometer equal to 10 raised to minus 9 meter. So we should write it like this. This much meter is 1 nanometer. So the atoms are the smallest particle of an element taking part in a chemical reaction, such that during the chemical reaction the atom will maintain its identity throughout the physical or chemical change. Now, to remember these atoms, now there were many elements, and to understand chemical reaction we started studying the atoms. But to study the atoms and write it down, we needed some symbol. So Dalton was the first scientist to use symbols. Dalton used symbols. You look at the symbols: hydrogen, phosphorus, copper, gold, carbon, sulfur, lead, platina. These were the symbols given by Dalton. Okay? And when he used a symbol, he meant a definite quantity of that element. So this sign shows one hydrogen. But it is very difficult. So Berzelius suggested another method from the two letters of the name of the element. So some are written with a single letter. Nitrogen is N, oxygen is O, potassium is got K from the Latin name Kalium. The Latin name of potassium is Kalium, so K. The Latin name of sodium is natrium. Latin name of sodium is natrium, so Na. So the English letters or the Latin letters, the first two letters. Now see, nitrogen is N, so sodium was named Na. Sulfur is S, so silicon is named Si. So first letter is capital, second letter is small. Silver is Ag, gold is Au, aurum. Silver is argentium, so Ag, gold is aurum, so Au. Uranium is U, zinc is given as Zn. So either using the first letter of the English name or the Latin name and the smaller letter, second letter. So cobalt is called, we have copper, which we call Cu. Cuprium is the Latin name, so Cu. Cobalt is called Co. Carbon is called C. So carbon is C, copper is Cu, cobalt is Co. Okay, so from the letter C you can see different names. So now we understood how to remember the names of the atoms taking part in the reaction. Now we saw the law of conservation of mass. To understand the law of conservation of mass, we should know the atomic mass, which we saw further. We measured in grams. We took 4 grams of hydrogen, yes, and 32 grams of oxygen to get 36 grams of H2O. then we measured the mass in grams. But now we want to know the mass of the atom. So the mass of the atom of an element is called its atomic mass. In 1961, the IUPAC, the International Unit for Physical and Analytical Chemical Reactions, have accepted atomic mass unit AMU or just U to express atomic molecular mass of elements and compounds. Okay, so Dalton said that the most remarkable concept is that of atomic mass. Each element has a characteristic atomic mass. So we can explain the law of conservation of mass and the law of constant proportion. Because of these two laws, we tried to find out the atomic mass of the various substances. Now today's definition is, first they compared the atomic mass with hydrogen. The atomic mass of hydrogen is 1. But hydrogen has got isotopes, which are deuterium and tritium. So the isotopes of hydrogen are protium, deuterium and tritium. So then they change the atomic mass unit. It is defined as the quantity of mass equal to 1/12 mass of a carbon C12. So carbon is taken as atomic mass 12 units. So 1/12 of the 12 units is considered to be 1 atomic mass. So 1 AMU is 1/12 of mass of carbon C12. And now experiment is found out, then 1 atomic mass equal to 1.66 into 10 raised to minus 27 kg. This is 1 atomic mass. Now you can see this is a diagram shown like a beam balance. 1 atom of hydrogen will have 1/12 the mass of a carbon compound. Means if you keep 12 hydrogen here, then the mass of this and carbon will be equal. 1 carbon equal to 12. So if I keep nitrogen, then the mass of nitrogen is almost 14. 14 times 1/12 of the carbon atom. So 14 1/12 of carbon atom will give us 1 nitrogen. Now usually these atomic masses are taken in whole numbers. Yes, there may be some discrepancies, some decimal point, but we usually for chemistry we take them in whole numbers. Hydrogen is 1 unit, carbon is 12 unit, nitrogen is 14, oxygen is 16, sodium 23, magnesium 24, sulfur 32, chlorine is taken 35.5. Now you will see later on it contains chlorine 15, Cl15 and Cl17 in the ratio 3:1. That you will see in the later lectures, but the atomic mass of chlorine is now taken 35.5 and calcium is taken as 40 units. So this is calculated experimentally, which we use in our equation. And now to see the last part, how do these atoms exist? In which way do they exist? So atoms of elements cannot exist independently. Atoms form molecules and ions. How they form molecules? Oxygen O cannot stay alone, so it forms O2. Hydrogen forms H2. Nitrogen forms N2. Cl forms Cl2. This is done by sharing of electrons called covalent bonds. Okay? Or they make ions. How are ions made? Sodium has got 11 protons and 11 electrons, but it is not stable because of the electrons in the outermost shell. So sodium gives away 1 electron and becomes 1 positive charge. Potassium gives away 1 electron and becomes 1 positive charge. So this will exist either as molecules or in the form of ions. Atoms of most elements are very reactive, so they cannot exist in free state in nature. Which do we find in free state? Only the atoms of the noble gas, one which does not react, are helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon and radon. These are the noble gases. They are unreactive. So they neither share electron nor transfer electron, and they exist in a free state in a single atom. There are always single atoms. But the atoms of other elements combine together to form molecules. So these are the molecules of oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen and chlorine. Yes? Because they cannot stay independently, they share the electrons and become molecules. So metallic are mostly in the form of atoms, but they are ionized. And non-metals will form molecules by sharing their electrons. So this is the first part of the lesson where we study about chemical reactions, and the atoms are the smallest substance taking part in the chemical reaction. So we have studied about the atom, try to understand atomic mass, and also how do atoms exist in nature. So this is the first part of the lesson. We'll continue with the remaining part in the next lecture. So I'm going to end here. Thank you.